Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, and it is September 16th, I believe. Oh my, we are halfway through the month, a little bit more than halfway, and we're still having warm temperatures. No frost as yet. Now that could all change in the next few days. I think we're supposed to dip down to the 50s with lows in the lower 40s, I think like 40 degrees. So it could happen at just about any time, but right now what we're looking at is a nice, ripe cantaloupe out of my garden. This is gardening zone 5A, 5B in Cheyenne, Wyoming, so it's very difficult to get this to happen, which is cantaloupes and watermelons and things like that to come to fruition. And this is what I found this morning. We've got one more cantaloupe left out on this same vine. This is the Ball 2076 cantaloupes, so you can see they are beautiful on the inside. This one's nice and ripe and very fragrant. I'm not really too happy with the size. As you can see, they are fairly small cantaloupes. And also, they have a very firm flesh even when they're ripe. So we are not a huge fan of that. We kind of like more of the Crenshaws and muskmelons and things like that are much softer flesh. They're very, very, very fragrant. This one is fragrant, but not quite as much as a muskmelon. So this is definitely a true cantaloupe. And yesterday I got to meet Surburban Homesteader Wyoming / Arizona's Sandi up in Gillette, Wyoming. We got to go out to dinner and have a nice visit with her when we went to pick up a half of a cow. So I will show you in just a moment how much a half of a cow is in our freezer, but just had to show you this cantaloupe first. And she brought me a few gifts. I took her some seeds and I have a couple of plans for a couple other things that will be a little bit later, but she brought me some of her fused glass. This is an ornament, Christmas ornament that she had made and brought for me. Isn't that beautiful? And I'm going to call this a window charm because it kind of looks like a prism that you would hang in a window and it would throw rainbows everywhere. Spectrum. So it looks like my grandson said, that looks like a snowman on a rocket ship. So there is that. It's a window charm. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And she made that. And she also brought me 2 jars of her strawberry rhubarb jam. So my partner really loves strawberry rhubarb jam, so he was very excited about that. So thank you, Sandi from Surburban Homesteader, Wyoming / Arizona. She is planning to go back to Arizona soon enough. She stays in Wyoming during the spring and summers and then goes to Arizona during the late fall and winter. So beautiful little gifts. Thank you so much, Sandi, and thank you so much for meeting me and spending some time with me yesterday in Gillette. And here is some tomatillos that we harvested yesterday. Look at these tomatillos. Absolutely beautiful. And this is off of the tomatillo vine that broke in all different directions. And then I just basically picked it back up and it healed when I did and tied it back up. So you can see nice tomatillos, and we'll be making some salsa verde out of those. And some of them we eat fresh because they are absolutely delicious eaten fresh. They are sweet, actually a little bit tropical. So try those out if you haven't. And welcome down to my freezer in my basement. And this is a half cow. So we have a half a cow in our freezer. We probably could have actually fit a whole cow in our freezer and a little bit more. But this was 388 pounds of meat that we were charged on. However, it was only $4 per pound, which is absolutely wonderful in this day and age. This was $4 a pound processed. So the processing charges were paid by the farmer, the rancher that actually provided the cow. It was Angus beef. We picked it up pretty close to Montana. We actually went to Gillette to pick it up, but it was cow grown in Montana and processed it Valley Meat in Dayton, Wyoming. But look at that. Absolutely amazing. We got so many T-bones, so many ribeyes, so much sirloin steak, tenderloin, and everything. We ended up with like 9 chuck roasts in here and just so much hamburger. An amazing amount of hamburger. And we also opted to keep the bones and the oxtail and the heart, the liver, the organ meat, that kind of thing. So we ended up with more pounds than just 388. That was no additional charge. Those were just extras. So we ended up with a whole lot of that, and that will be processed down as far as the organ meat for dog food that we have for our dogs. And look at all of that meat. Now, of course, we already had our freezer stocked pretty full with pork and other meat that we had. And I already had some mixed pork and hamburger in here that we just stock in here. And we still had some ribeyes left over and a whole bunch of other stuff in here. So really, we essentially have most of a hog in here, a pig, and we have the half a cow, and then we have a lot of chicken and pheasants and a whole bunch of stuff in here. So all together, we ended up with a full freezer. So we have almost a completely full freezer in here. And this is an 18.9 cubic foot Kenmore freezer that we had picked up in August. So there we have that absolutely full freezer. And we still have a whole box full of vegetables to process. You can see a nice, beautiful eggplant right there on the top. And all these tomatoes. So these are tomatoes that we had to pull early because the vines were pretty damaged. So we went ahead and got those pulled. A lot of them have already turned red, and this one is turning. A lot of them are turning, so we're about ready to process those. We got so many cucumbers that we need to process into pickles, and we have more tomatillos over here from the volunteer tomatillo vines. So you can see loads of tomatillos there. And more tomatoes to finish out turn red, which already one of them is doing that. And loads more of the little cherry tomatoes. These are the little pear tomatoes, as well as the Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, which we are just about ready to run out of those, the Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, because the vine is basically done. So got loads of those in there. And then we have still the apples to process. We have a lot of Honeycrisp apples to process into caramel apple pie filling. And we are still drying herbs like crazy because it is that time to get herbs dried. So we have tarragon, parsley, lemon balm, or not lemon balm, but lemon basil, and thyme, and oregano. And we've got basil seeds to harvest, rosemary, and hibiscus flowers that are drying. And all of this stuff to sort and put into bags. And I need to shell, or basically take off the corn from the cob and get that bagged as well. So we have loads and loads and loads of things that are going on and that we're doing. And then plus we had to go pick up that cow. And it is just an amazing amount of stuff going on here in Cheyenne at our big Victorian house. That we just have so much to do. And we're headed out right now to the garden. I just harvested a few more things from the garden. But I just wanted to show everybody how this is going. We actually had another cabbage that split because we got some more rain. And it just said, nope, I'm done. And it split. So we got to get that one harvested. And we still have a load more cabbage in here. And one of the questions that Sandi had yesterday for me was, she asked me what was the best thing in the garden this season. And I had to tell her, well, pretty much everything did really well. I was a little surprised because we started off the season pretty rough. But I think the cabbage did the best this season. As far as size and things like that, I usually do not get very large cabbages, but this year we got plenty of cabbages and most of them are pretty large. So here's one of the cabbages that split right here. So we got to get that one pulled and get those two processed. We've got 2 cabbages now to process that did split, and loads of carrots to start worrying about. We've got carrots in there that we need to go ahead and get thinned out too, and just a whole garden full of stuff. We are almost at the point where we can start taking the pumpkins and red curries off the vines, but I will leave them until the very last moment just so they have time to just stay on the vines and get very mature. So we've got so much stuff in here this year. I basically tripled what we were doing from last season. So we ended up with just so much produce in here. And then finally we're getting in our dinosaur kale and turnips and beets. So we're just getting to the point where we're just overran with things that we need to process. And we have so many pumpkins in here. It looks like this one out here is finally turning orange, so you can see that pumpkin. And more kale. This is the Russian red kale. We have more radishes over here. I'm not sure these will end up actually heading up because they are in the shade. We just basically put some ground cover in here of radishes. We may end up with a few out of here. Just a moment. Sorry about that. I ended up having to pause the video because we had someone coming to pick up some worms from me because they just moved to Wyoming, and there's not a lot of worms in the soil in Wyoming in certain places. So he came from Alaska and was looking for worms. So my dogs have decided that they need to come out and play. It is that time of the season. We're getting towards fall, but it's supposed to be in the 80s today. So they're probably just taking advantage of the early morning. The little brown one is Wesley, and the black one is Elvira. So anyway, we had a fellow come pick up some worms. I had to pause it again because my partner came out here to ask me something. So he came to pick up some worms. He's going to be putting those into his soil. And anyway, we're just back looking at the garden. So that is the garden in a nutshell. We have so much stuff to harvest and so much stuff to do. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. And we will see you in the next one.